I ask you, what are the things you believe that are so bold that you would say them publicly, but you would also bet your own money on them? Let's go to the tape tonight. We got several bold predictions here, and the first is the Georgia Bulldogs cruise to a 16-0 record. They win the national title in dominant fashion. Carson Beck wins the Heisman Trophy. I made this a 9.25 on the boldness scale. They're going to be favored in all 12 games. I can't tell you what they would be favored in the playoff games because I haven't seen the season and I don't know who they'd be playing. But just to give you an idea of Georgia's schedule this year, they open against Clemson. They're nearly a 2-touchdown favorite in Atlanta against Clemson. They go to Alabama. They're about a 3 to a 3.5 point favorite there right now as it stands on FanDuel, and that game is in week 4. They go to Texas 3 weeks after that, I think. They're a 1.5 point favorite. You heard me right. Georgia's favored at Texas in Austin by 1.5. And then they go to Ole Miss a few weeks later, and they're favored by 5.5. Interesting. So Georgia has an over-under win total of 10.5 at FanDuel. They play 7 of the college football playoff top 25 teams in terms of the odds market right now. There's no actual poll out. But in terms of the odds to win the national title, Georgia plays 7 of the teams in the top 25. Carson Beck, for his spot in this, is the current favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, and his odds are plus 750. Quinn Ewers is right behind him. Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Nico Iamaleava after that. Nico's 5th, and he hasn't even been a full-year starter yet. That's pretty fascinating. So, and I believe in him, by the way. So I'm going to make this a 9.25 on the boldness scale. It's hard to go undefeated. It's hard with a soft schedule. But Georgia does not have a soft schedule this year. Surely there will be someone out there who still just baselessly claims that Georgia doesn't play anybody, and they'll be wrong. And so I'm going to make that a 9.25. Now, this next one, we got Kansas multiple times in the show tonight. And here's the first. Snowman Sports hits us up and says Kansas will make the playoff. And I'm an Indiana Hoosier fan. This is an 8.75. 12 teams now. We got 12 teams this year. It's the Big 12, which is just our notion that we use anytime we talk about the Big 12. It's the Big 12. So anything is possible. It's very hard to make a prediction about the Big 12 that goes above a 9 right now just because it's the Big 12. So craziness is expected. They have the 3rd best odds, do the Kansas Jayhawks, to win the Big 12. You win it, you're certainly in the playoff. My question would be, could the Big 12 have a good enough year where 2 teams from the conference make the playoff? You can go to FanDuel right now, and they have the odds to make or miss the playoff. So Kansas, if you want to say yes, they make the playoff, it's plus 610. No, it's minus 1,000. So certainly you're going to have to pay a lot more to bet that they don't make it than to bet that they do make it. But there is only one team on the schedule you're looking at on your screen right now that Kansas faces this year that's inside the preseason top 25 playoff odds, and that's at Kansas State on October 26th. That's a very workable schedule by Power 4 standards. Kansas has a very workable schedule. Here's what they don't have: a lot of returning experience. Last year, they were near the top. This year, they're 81st in returning production. Jalen Daniels, we hope, is back at quarterback. I'm making this one an 8.75. It is a crazy thing to say. Imagine telling yourself this 10 years ago. But it is not the boldest thing to predict Kansas to make the playoff this year. Someone's going to make it. Someone's going to make it from the Big 12. Could be them. Next up. Whoo-wee. All right, let me make sure the friends of ours on the West Coast hear this is Mike's prediction, not mine. Hear that? Triple paper pop from Mike. Mike says USC will miss a bowl game on the back of a sub-top 50 offense and a bottom 50 defense. Mike, out of respect to how thorough your prediction is, I'm not going to pay so much attention to where you predicted the offense and defense to rank because you led with a big enough bombshell. If USC doesn't make a bowl game, that will turn one of the premier programs in this sport on its ear. And we'll have some uncomfortable conversations about Lincoln Riley to be had. Certainly we'd have to see how the season played out. Was there a big injury at quarterback or something like that versus did they just suck? So their over-under win total 7.5. I want to repeat that, okay? As you start to get your bearings here, it's almost June, guys, so you got to start figuring this out. You got to start placing teams in your mind in the proper context. USC, Their over-under win total is only 7.5, and that's juiced to the under. Okay, so if anything, Vegas, FanDuel at least, leans a little bit under on that. Missing a bowl game is just them going 5-7, basically. I'm going to call it an 8.25. I'm going to call it an 8.25. Look at the schedule, which Colin is showing you right now. You've just got to look at this thing in best and worst case scenarios. Best case scenario, DeAnton Lynn comes in from across town, and the defensive coordinator, new defensive staff, they just drastically upgrade everything, and Miller Moss works out at quarterback. And if that's the case, this is a moot point. USC will more than make a bowl game. USC could compete for the Big Ten championship. Frankly, if that's the case. If it's not the case, so that's the best case. If the worst case happens, they did not do enough in the portal to fortify their defensive front, and if it's just toilet paper again this year, and it prevents that defense from taking any kind of noticeable leap in production, and if USC's offense is off, if it doesn't have its fastball, then what Lincoln Riley specializes in isn't quite there, and what USC has been known for, lack of defense, is still a problem. They could miss a bowl game. That actually could happen, and it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. Line of scrimmage game. If you go into the Big Ten and you don't have it at the line of scrimmage, that's ball game for you in multiple situations. They open against LSU. They got Michigan on the road, Wisconsin, at Minnesota, Penn State. They go to Washington the first week of November. Nebraska comes in there. They got Notre Dame. So if you don't have it at the line of scrimmage, there are multiple losses on this schedule. I'm not just talking about against the big boys either. If you do have it, USC is going to be a really fun team to watch this year. 8.25 on the boldness scale. And lastly, this was a fun one. I probably spent way too much time on this one today. All 4 power conferences will be won by new members of that conference from Macomb, Michigan. Well, we know the Big 12 is guaranteed to have a new conference winner because Texas is not there anymore. So we're going to go at least 1 of 4 here. In the SEC, Bama won it last year. Bama has the 4th best odds to win it this year. So Georgia is the overwhelming favorite, and then Texas behind them to win it this year, and it doesn't matter which one does it. If either one of them do it, boom, we nailed the SEC. If the Big Ten has anyone other than Michigan win it, then we nailed that one. Michigan has the 4th best odds to win the Big Ten. Ohio State's a clear favorite, and Oregon's behind them. Penn State has better odds than Michigan right now. So if any of those 3 win it, boom, took care of the Big Ten. The ACC is probably the toughest because Florida State won it last year, and Florida State has overwhelmingly at the moment the best odds to win the conference again this year. Clemson's number 2, Miami's 3, and then Louisville, NC State are 4. All right, so the prediction was a new Power 4 conference champ in each conference. I think that this is an 8.75 on the boldness scale. Because to me, the Big 12, guaranteed. The SEC, if Georgia wins it, check mark. The Big 10, if Ohio State wins it, or Oregon, check mark. And in the ACC, Florida State the favorite right now. Miami could make some noise here. Clemson can make some noise. The ACC actually is the toughest one to me because Florida State is and should be the favorite there preseason. There's the Undertaker just casually handing out the Big 12 championship belt. What a sport. What a sport we have here. I'm going to make it an 8.75. Last year, by the way, we had 4 Power 5 conference champs that were new out of 5. And then we retired the entire moniker Power 5. So there you go.